My client landed a $25,490 ghostwriting project in just 7 weeks after starting our process. I'm going to break down the exact systems and processes we use to help him land this massive project, as well as help over 100 other freelancers land similar clients. Our client, David, is a copywriter and ghostwriter with 17 years of experience. Despite his expertise, he was mainly getting clients through referrals and word of mouth, averaging only one ghostwriting client per year, and we both know that in this economy, that's not enough, especially if you live in the UK. I want to walk you through the exact steps we took to help him land this 25K project in just 7 weeks after starting with us, and David now is on track to hit $170,000 this year. And by the way, you can get this whole document I'm about to go through for free in the description below. Okay, everyone, so let's get right in. And by the way, if you want to check out our website at freelanceclients.com, you can do so by clicking on this link or just Googling freelanceclients.com yourself. So the first thing we're going to start with in this video is, more importantly, like what most freelancers get wrong with client acquisition, okay? Because in order for us to understand what you need to do to land more clients like our client David, you need to understand what you're doing wrong first. The number one mistake I see most freelancers do that I work with is relying solely on inbound marketing and referrals. And doing this creates an unpredictable feast or famine cycle that's impossible to scale, because the reality is you cannot predict how many referrals you're going to get next month, right? Or this month. So it's basically just playing a game of chance and relying on hope as your marketing strategy, which isn't a very, very good thing. The problem with getting more clients is not your skill. It's your approach to getting in front of the right people at the right time. Because that's literally what outbound is, right? It's putting yourself in front of so many people that it's inevitable you're going to be in the right place at the right time for a couple of times. And that's really all you need, right? Because as a freelancer, why I love cold outbound and why it works so well is that you only need a couple of good clients. You're not a business owner. You don't need to have customers consistently coming in every single month for the rest of your life. You need to just build a loyal client base that's going to stay with you for years to come. And then your job with marketing is done, right? So for example, when this client, David, came to us, he had tried some outbound marketing himself, but was only spending 1 or 2 hours a day sending just 20 to 30 personalized messages. The results he got? Almost nothing, right? The market is flooded with writers who are driving prices down, competing for the same pool of clients and that have the exact same offer. And that's the sad reality. That's why job boards like Upwork, they're not working anymore, because there's just so many people doing the same things that business owners are just overwhelmed with the amount of choice they have, right? So they have writers in abundance. So of course it's going to be hard to stand and to have like a better position in front of your competition, right? So that's what you need to get out of your head before moving forward to the next step, right? So stop relying on inbound and referrals and stop relying on methods that are like inevitable to fail with, like relying on hope as a strategy, right? And you need to start getting the outbound game right. Now, step number 2, I want to talk about the 2 things we have done pre-outreach, because, okay, most of you probably understand the notion of outreach, right? You send messages to strangers in hopes that they will be interested and they will have a conversation with you about your services. But again, like, it's still a strategy. It still requires some preliminary work. It still requires some preparation, right? So here are the 2 things we did with David before we started the outreach campaign. Number 1 was to find the right industry to target on the right platform. One of the first things we discovered with this client was that targeting the right industry makes all the difference. Because when we initially started the project a couple of months ago, we initially started reaching out to recruitment agency business owners, right? Because simply that was his niche. He worked with a couple of people in that space before, so it was relevant to just go for, the next most logical thing. And while the leads were good and people were qualified, they weren't at the price point he wanted, right? So the people wanted the service, they had some money, but they just weren't qualified enough as business owners and as people with capital to invest in invest how much David actually wanted, right? So what we did, instead of trying to lower his prices, because that's not what you want to do in these situations, is we pivoted to a new industry, one where decision makers had larger budgets and were more ready to invest. And most importantly, they had a story that mattered to the world, right? Because with recruitment agency owners, most of the time, they don't have such a great story to tell, right? They can only talk about business and brag about their achievements, right? So it's more like an ego based book. So what worked for David and for us is we'd identified healthcare as an excellent target for ghostwriting services, whether that is mental health, dentists, medical device companies, or just health tech entrepreneurs. Being a ghostwriter or a copywriter in this industry is definitely beneficial, right? Because people have stories to share. People are finding solutions to thousand-year-old problems every single day. They create new devices that can help cure different diseases. They help people every single day, and they have this mission instilled in their mentality to help and save more lives, right? So inevitably, if you're going as a copywriter and you make the promise that, hey, I'm going to write your content, get your methods out in the world in front of the right people, help you save more patients, same thing we did with David, with book ghostwriting, then of course it's going to work, right? And these people, they have the budget as well, because healthcare is a big industry. They have the stories and they want to change the world, okay? So not only that, but it is also crucial to identify the platform on which these people hang around. And for us, this was LinkedIn, right? Because in most industries, like 80% of industries, unless it's like pet shop owners, the best platform to find high quality founders is LinkedIn, right? So whether you're doing tech, finance, healthcare, marketing agencies, recruiters, it's LinkedIn is the best place to find these people, right? So as you can see right here, what I want you to understand from step number one is that we focused specifically on what David's service was offering, right? So he mostly ghostwrites books. So we figured out what does a book, what is a book going to help the founder with? What is their ultimate goal with it? Because nobody writes a book just to stare at some pages, right? They need to have a goal with it. So we identified in healthcare that these are the main reasons. We did some deep research and we figured out specifically what these people want. And whether you're doing email marketing, web copy, landing page copy, whatever type of writing you do, you have to do the same thing for your clients and for your specific industry, okay? So that was thing number one. Now, thing number two was to refine the offer. Not only was finding the right industry important, but we also had to refine his offer, right? Because the industry is full of the same repeated offers again and again and again, right? I write compelling words that sell. That's what 90% of the copywriters are saying these days. And fortunately, David was lucky enough to work with one of the directors at Google prior to our collaboration. So we leveraged that as social proof in the message, right? Because here's a very interesting tip for outreach. If you have any form of leverage, like you've achieved X, Y, and Z results for a business, you worked with this company either by yourself or through an agency that is very well known in the space, you've worked with over 40 companies in this specific industries, right? Any metric like that, any form of authority, leverage it in the outreach message. If you do that, you will instantly go through the gates. You basically surpass the gatekeeper of resistance that people have when they receive messages from freelancers, right? Because now you're not just someone who writes compelling words, like most of you would say. You are someone that worked with 40 brands and with Google and they did X, Y, and Z, right? So instant authority right there. But that alone is not going to do the trick. Just because you work with someone at Google doesn't mean people are just going to fall in love with you and become your biggest fans, right? So we still had to figure out what these people wanted. Why would they even flinch at the idea of engaging with a stranger to write a book, which is a tedious process in itself, right? And this is the question you want to ask yourself. Why would someone flinch at the idea of engaging with me, responding, dealing with my questions, going through a form, booking a call, spending 45 minutes on Zoom with me? Like, why is it so important for them to do that? And that's how you reverse engineer and you learn exactly what you need to say in the message. So we spent some time doing high quality research. We looked at prefaces of books written by similar entrepreneurs. We looked at reviews of those books and we quickly identified what these people were looking for. Very simple. And you can do the same thing regardless of the service you offer by looking up on Reddit, by looking at Facebook groups and conversations. If you join, if you have any masterminds that you're part of, doing surveys, cold calling business owners and asking them, right? So all these things you can do to find what your market wants. So creating an offer that was good enough to get strangers to stop from what they're doing and be invested to take it further was crucial, right? So that's pretty much step number 2. Okay, so we did these 2 things pre-outreach. Like we really spend a lot of time here, and that's the most important thing for you as well. Okay, this is not like a 10-minute preparation process that you can half-ass. Okay, no, you need to really spend the time. I think you need to spend more time here than you spend writing the messages themselves or even setting up the system, right? This is the most important thing right here, because if you get this right in the first shot, or even like the second or third shot, you will always have the foundation, right? Writing the outreach and then going to do some research is just like building the house with no foundation. Simple. It's the same concept, right? So yeah, with that being said, I hope it makes sense. And let's move on to step number 3, which was creating an outreach strategies. Most freelancers do 2 things wrong with this. They either send generic and irrelevant messages, and this is mostly because they don't do enough research on their prospects, which is completing step number 2, and they don't reach out to enough people, right? Because fun fact, if you think sending 20 messages a day is a lot, it isn't. It's literally like finding a needle in the haystack, right? It's literally the same thing if you're sending 20 DMs a day. That's only like what, 600 people a month? There's millions of business owners. How do you expect to get results with cold outreach if you only reach out to 600 people a month? So what we did is we created a personalized approach that cuts through the noise by leveraging authority and the research we've done in step number 2, and that also can efficiently send 90 to 100 messages a day, every single day from Monday to Friday, without David being involved in the process of doing it. Because sending 20 messages a day while doing client work and dealing with your family and all that stuff is tedious work anyway. So why would someone want to do 5 times that activity, right? So before you click off this video, no, I'm not going to give you an outreach framework and tell you to go and send 100 messages a day yourself, right? So keep watching. Now, key components. The messages that appear natural and organic, which are not salesy, based on the hyper-targeted research we've done, this is a super key component, okay? Messages are relevant to the person and their industry. Again, very important. Well thought up follow-up sequence was something that, again, was super, super important. And you're going to love the approach we have about when it comes to follow-ups, because it's something different that you've never seen. And this is what you need to do to level up your game, right? And then lastly, after we have the natural messages that are relevant and we have the follow-up sequence plugged in and ready to go, what we did is we hired an outreach specialist to handle the volume of 100 messages a day, right? Because David himself could not do it. So why not just delegate? Why not delegate that skill to someone that can actually make it their full-time occupation every single day? Right now, why and how do we hire an outreach specialist, and why is it so effective? As a freelancer, just like David, you're probably not the biggest fan of spending your days doing marketing stuff for yourself, right? Otherwise, you'd be a freelance marketing consultant, not a freelance writer. And unfortunately, my friend, marketing is the core component of selling anything, including writing services. So you're not getting away from it, right? You're literally not getting away from it. So unless you want to stay average and you want to rely on it in referrals and word of mouth and be in that inconsistent cycle. So if that is something that you cannot escape, basically, right? As a freelancer, if you want to thrive, what are the options for you then? Well, you can either do it yourself and keep hating your life every single day because you have to send thousands of messages, right? Or you can just learn a method, test it, prove it, make sure that it works, and then transfer that skill to someone else, aka what we call an outbound specialist, right? Or an outreach specialist, whatever you want to call them. Imagine having someone like a mini employee dealing with finding high quality leads, vetting them, sending personalized outreach messages, following up, keeping a clear and organized pipeline, having conversations and booking appointments with them, and triaging the disqualified ones. And no, despite what you're thinking, something like this doesn't cost you 4 figures a month, right? It costs way less than that based on our specific approach. And hiring an outbound specialist isn't that complicated. You just need a strategy that works first, having that foundational work done, a strong outreach method, and a platform to send the messages on. And you can just go on platforms like Upwork and onlinejobs.ph and Facebook groups to find outreach experts that are ready to adapt to your specific strategy, but do not require a ton of training. If you look for talent in the Philippines, these absolute beasts that are the hardest working and most friendly people ever, they charge you between $3 to $10 an hour for this kind of stuff, right? So if it takes you 3 hours a day to do your prospecting currently, you can outsource it for as little as $9 a day. That's literally a cup of coffee every single day that you could be spending towards making your business better and delegating everything. So now that I've opened your eyes to this method, to this controversial way of running your freelancing business, would you rather keep doing it yourself for 4 hours a day, or would you sacrifice a few dinners out per month to have someone do it for you? And besides that, doing it yourself means you have to do it every day, right? Training, figuring out, and passing it on as a skill, yes, it may take a couple of months, but it's a one-time job that you do it for once, and then you can just consistently have the outbound specialist do everything for you, right? Now, back to David. He mentioned that prospects frequently told him our messages stood out from hundreds of other sales messages they receive daily. And that's the difference between being seen and being ignored, right? The difference between a good offer and a bad offer, the difference between doing your research and building the foundation, and the difference between sending 20 messages a day versus 100 messages a day, right? So very important thing. So now that we covered this, right? So now basically we have the foundation, we have the message, the outreach message, we have the strategy, and we understand the concept of passing that on to someone else. Now it's time to go to step number 4, which is building a client acquisition system. Now that we have the system set up, it's time to start the outreach process, right? So this is what you ideally want to learn, implement, prove, and then transition further to your outbound specialist. We didn't just set up some LinkedIn messages and hope for the best. We built a complete system for David, a well thought out, detailed outreach message, a strategic targeting of decision makers, automated yet personalized outreach with the outbound specialist, professional lead qualification done by them as well, leveraged relevant case studies and results in the message to make them stand out. We have a subtle qualifier in the outreach message to make sure that all the bad fits are going to be automatically repelled by the message, right? So an example here would be like if you're doing email marketing, right? Maybe you need your potential clients to have a list of at least 500 people. So then you want to include that in the outreach message so that you don't get positive responses from people that are not a fit, right? And then lastly, after we implemented all of this to have the sales calls coming in, we prepared him for taking sales calls, and we helped him implement our deal closing strategies that have resulted in this $25,000 project. And ultimately, at the time of me recording this, David has a pipeline of about $170,000 in project for 2025. So yeah, and then the first month we implemented this, David had 17 qualified booked appointments. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Now, that's how we want to build a client acquisition system, right? So treat this as a checklist, okay? As something you need before you actually start doing this, okay? And this is the step-by-step process right here. So now that we talked about the outreach and how to do it and what platform to use and how to delegate it even, what is the sales process that closed a $25,490 project? Here's how we helped our client close the final stages of the deal, because once you have a system, once it books calls in your calendar, now you need to close the deal, okay? So first of all, let's talk about a few mindset shifts. You need to stop seeing sales as persuasion or perhaps trying to convince someone to do something they don't want to do. And you need to start focusing on deep understanding and active listening. That's the most important part of sales, because you guys get something very wrong about sales calls. You go on sales calls as a freelancer and you expect people to know what they want from you. That's never the case. It's rarely the case, okay? Most people jumping on a call with you, they don't really, or maybe they have a thought that they know they know what they want, but they really don't. They're getting on that call with you so you can guide them as an expert through what they need to achieve their goal. That's what I was trying to say. They know their goal. They know what they want to ultimately achieve, but they don't know what they need to do to get there. And that's your job on the call. So if you can start being an active listener and hear their pain and what they tried and what worked and what didn't, and you can figure out a problem and a solution that those people have or need, then it's game over. That's how you manage to sell, okay? So the first impression you need to make on a sales call is that you are a trusted consultant. Forget the pitch deck, because relying on standardized pitches is old, and it will definitely turn prospects off. Because when you spend 25, 30, 45 minutes with someone talking about their problems, their desires, their goals, and then from that beautiful, deep conversation about what could be done, you share your screen and you go into a generic PowerPoint presentation that it's just like you can see it that 100 other people have seen the same thing. What goes on in the prospect's mind is, here we go again, just another boring presentation I have to sit through for 20 minutes, ask how much it is, tell him I cannot afford it, and then just F off into the sunset, right? Real success comes from dynamic and responsive interaction. So try making your pitch conversational based on what you heard on the call instead. Okay, and I'm going to explain in just a second how we do that in the pitching strategy. But now that we understand like the way we look at the sales process, let's go through it step by step. Okay, so the first thing you want to do when you get on that sales call is to set the frame for the call. You want to avoid scripted introductions. Okay, I highly discourage you to use like the generic opening lines like, yeah, so the way how these calls usually go is I'm gonna ask you a couple of questions and you're gonna answer me and then blah 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 blah, right? No, be direct. Engage with the client with specific relevant questions. Cut the BS like what motivated you to get on a call today, or what is your biggest struggle when it comes to building your business, or generic answers or questions, sorry, like that, okay? Because you're going to get generic answers. You want to frame the call as a strategic discussion aimed at specific outcomes rather than a sales pitch, right? You want to be like, okay, Name, so what I want to do here today is just have an honest and transparent conversation with you, understand more about your business and what you're trying to specifically achieve with your crypto company. And if I feel like you can come in, work with me, and get the success you want from your email marketing channel, we're going to go into the next steps. If not, that's fine. We can just part ways as friends, right? That's a very good way. And I kind of freestyled it there of how you want to frame the conversation. Okay, adapt it to your style, but keep the same energy, keep the same mentality, right? Like, hey, this is just going to be an honest conversation. If I can help you, fine. If not, then that's also fine, right? And that's how you want to frame the call. Now, once the call is framed, we move on to the discovery phase. So in the discovery phase, people would tell you mostly like ask as many questions as possible, get the pain, get the emotion, get everything, right? And while that is true on a certain note, what you need to do as well is you need to focus on creating a connection based on understanding the client's business and personal aspirations, right? You have to think, who do you trust the most, right? It's your friends, it's not strangers. So you need to make sure that the conversation you have with the business owner is just like a conversation you would have with a friend, and it's going to come across way more natural and way more authentic. And if you can help them get that vibe throughout the call that they're speaking with a friend and not someone that's trying to sell them something, you're going to have a way better success rate at closing deals, right? So what I want you to do is I need you to use targeted questions to draw out not just what the client is doing, but why they feel it's not working, right? So you don't want to be like, oh, so what software they use? Yeah, Active Campaign. Oh, awesome. So how many emails do you send a month? Oh, 5 emails a month. Oh, wow. And that kind of conversation, because that's too technical. It doesn't get to the root cause of the problem. But what if you ask, like, what solutions have you tried before to get more revenue without investing in ads? Oh, I've tried doing content. Okay, so why aren't you focusing on content then? Well, because it didn't work. Why didn't it work? Because ABC. Okay, so what makes you feel that email would be a better channel to do it? This type of conversation is the conversation you need to have if you want to move the needle forward um, with your potential clients. Okay, and the main goal with the discovery phase is to quickly identify the client's ultimate business goals that they could achieve by implementing your service solution and the roadblocks they encountered in solving that problem. Because you need to understand, you need to build a gap between A to B. A is where they are right now with everything they've tried and is on their back currently, and B is where they want to go. And the distance between A to B is the solution they're seeking, is the ultimate, like, final thing they're looking to implement that they can finally trust to get to their desired result. And in most cases, that's why they're on a call with you, right? To figure out if your solution is what they need. And when you look at the calls this way and you frame it as a connection based conversation, you start being an active listener, you throw the scripts out the window. I'm telling you, you're going to get a lot better at sales calls. Okay. So that's pretty much it, okay? That's the discovery phase. Now, the pitching strategy. Okay, this is the most important part of the sales process. So please pay extra attention to this one. Okay, the whole purpose of a pitch is not to show them a presentation. It's to focus on problem solving, okay? Transition from selling products or services to solving problems, okay? Instead of sharing the screen and showing people like your email marketing packages with how many emails you write, what you do, how much it costs per word, and blah, 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 position it as a strategic tool to enhance revenue without ad spend. Instead of selling them on the idea of how many emails you write, sell them on the idea of how working with you are going to get them to that result of making more money without investing in ads. Or if you're writing thought leadership articles, right? Don't sell them on the idea of how much you charge per word or how many articles you push out. Sell them on the idea of what their life would look like if they would be on more stages, speaking at events, if their company would make it to whatever conferences there are in that industry, right? That's why we need to do step number 2, right, guys? We need to identify what those people want, and that's something we don't use just in the outreach process. We also use it in the sales process, right? Um, and if you cannot figure out the problem your market has, then go back to step number 2 and do more research, right? Now, what you want to do as well is you want to relate to them as much as possible by crafting your pitch around their goals, right? Using the insights you gained during the discovery phase to represent a customized solution rather than offering a generic solution and a generic price table, as I mentioned. So this is a skill that's definitely going to require 20, 30, maybe 40 sales calls until you get it right. But what you want to do is you want to build a custom pitch for every single client. I need you to be better at making quotes on the spot, on the call, based on what you heard, right? And that's the way you need to do things. You need to understand the client's needs, because that always leads to more effective pitches, right? You need to reflect their objectives back to them, show them that you've listened and you didn't just like go through the questions and now you're sharing your boring presentation. And you need to show them that you have the right solutions, okay? Because 2 most important things: people are looking to be listened to, not sold to. So be the guy that listens. And then people are looking to invest in a solution. They're not looking to spend money. Okay. So if you cannot show them that you listen to them and you don't have a solution they can invest in, then you're cooked, right? It's not going to work. And you're relying on luck and probabilities to land clients, which is not a good strategy, I'm telling you. Okay. So how you want to go about the pitch is very simple. If your client told you that they tried personal branding before, let's take a very specific example, right? Let's say you are an email copywriter and you're pitching a client and you ask them what they tried. They're looking at email basically to add more revenue to the company, right? They need an extra revenue stream for the company. So you want to ask them obviously like what they tried, why it didn't work. And let's say they tell you they tried doing like an Instagram brand, but it just didn't work because they didn't have time to dedicate towards creating content and following up with people and doing all that stuff. Now, instead of you going over generic email marketing stuff, why don't you sell them on the idea that, hey, look, with email, first of all, you don't need to invest in content and production and all of those extra expenses that are on your P&L at the end of every month. And besides that, if we decide to work together, I'm going to write the emails. I'm going to send them out. I'm going to do the analysis of data. I'm going to come out with solutions. So you really can just focus on what's already working for your company, and you will let me steer the ship in terms of building this new extra revenue stream, right? That's a way better selling point than I write 6 emails a month for $300 an email, right? I hope that makes sense, guys. And I'm not going to go too deep into this because that's something for another training and I already have it prepared for you. So stick until the end to receive it. But yeah, that's pretty much the sales process we implemented for David, right? So with that being said, that's exactly how we helped him land that 25K ghostwriting project in just 7 weeks. And after helping hundreds of freelancers get similar results, we know this result is not a fluke or luck or whatever you want to call it. It is a system that has been refined from years of trial and error, figuring out what works and what doesn't in this ever-changing industry, right? So if you're a copywriter, book ghostwriter, or other freelancer who wants to finally escape the feast or famine cycle and start landing high-ticket clients consistently, we can help you build the same exact system as David has here, right? We can help you build that stuff in just a couple of weeks. So You can check out our other case studies on freelanceclients.com. We've gotten massive case studies and massive results time and time again. So if you're serious about growing your freelance business, click the first link in the description to learn more about how you can work with us and get this whole system implemented without you having to deal with the months and months and months of trial and error and figuring out where to hire, how to hire, what systems work, what doesn't, how to build the outreach script, and all of that. Okay, so go in the description, click on the first link. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next one.